Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Will here. Give everyone a couple minutes to pile in, and then we'll start the spiel. I don't think we have any pre-submitted questions today, so it might be another short one. I'm also a little under the weather, so I apologize if you hear me coughing. Okay. All right. All right, Jeremy, here we go. We're using the user interface option under Publish a Flow to allow a user to access a process. We are using a named session for authentication, as the user will not log in to access the portal. This creates a very long URL. Is there a way to do some kind of redirect from a shorter URL that is easier for our users to remember? I think the simplest way maybe would be to just use a guest account. Then it would be guest equals true in the URL instead of session ID equals ns dash blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't prefer name session. I would prefer name sessions over guest for sure. Those would be.
But that's the URL still contains the ID of the flow. That I'm calling. So like, I would like to have something like very short that doesn't have somebody have to remember a long string of ID number.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, you can.
And it also has some other parameters for how it's shown on the page. So it's not bigger than I designed it. It's centered on the screen horizontally. And then the Chrome equals off so that they don't see any of the portal things as well. So that's just all those things compounded makes a very long URL that I can't expect someone to try and type into the address bar.
Like, you're not making it available for them to click on in some place, or you are?
They are, but I've already had some of my internal people send out links that they took from the address bar as they were in the process. So then it added in the flow tracking IDs and all that. So I'm just trying to eliminate user error to have a very simple thing that someone can either send it as a link and they're not adding extra parameters that are going to break it for somebody else. So having some other kind of shorter URL that's just my base URL / something or something like that, then just redirects to that longer configuration of the
URL. Let's see here. So I have a flow set to user interface, and I'm going to click view here. And I see login, which gives me my primary flow ID. I can call it by path. That's not going to be much better unless I put a root folder. That's probably not going to be any better. I thought you could create a custom REST URL for this. Let me see.
You can when you use the API integration type, but not on the user interface.
That probably means you can okay, interesting. So we only expose that for the service URL. Hold on, how about integration type? Do we have all? No. There is a thing called a flow alias. Let me remember where those are at. I think system designers. see here. Alias service. Let's go to the alias folder. Alias. Let's see here. Folder and create new insert entity alias. It's an entity alias. Where is flow alias at? Did we remove that from the product? I don't remember how to do this. Running a flow using an alias.
Yeah, I looked at that, but it goes on the REST API.
It sure does. Let's go back to version 5 and see if we could get something else here. Edit advanced create URL alias. Let's see here. Right click, edit advanced, create URL alias, create flow alias. Alias is, I'll just call this alias flow. Now, did that add into an alias here? Alias flow. Okay, how do I call this thing? Insurance underscore request, integration, view integration details, embed type, direct URL, refer to type by alias. This might not be supported anymore. Let's come in here to our view. There's alias. Flow alias equals alias flow. That's not really going to do much for you. Yeah. Yeah, so you might have to do something real silly here using, let's just, I'm just going to play around here for a bit. I don't know that this is a great idea, but there is an inform session step. And so theoretically, we could redirect, navigate, or open URL, open a new window, I'll say false. And what if I went and did this? Let me make a new flow here really quickly. And in this flow, I'll put one single form here. And I'll put a label here. A button. Save this and connect here. And then I will save this. And I will say, let me call you as user interface. Yep, and click view. So here's this. So I could say display settings, maximized. I have Chrome off. So if I run this, it'll look like this terribleness. Okay, that's good. So then what I'll do is come into my inform session step and I'll put that as the URL. I could have, I wouldn't need a name session, or the name session would exist. Let me see here. What happens if I go to integration on this, and here's my flow. Hold on. Yeah, so let me copy this. What happens when I run this in a new tab? Nothing happened. It hit its end step. Let me just debug this and see what happens. Nothing. Okay, that showed me the flow like I was expecting to see. That called the other URL. That doesn't work. Let me look at this. It's set up to call user interface. Let's try this as API service. And override service URLs REST API test 1. Okay. I'm going to refresh here. Okay. call this. All right, it's just gonna end. So I can't do REST. I can't do his API service. So it has to be user interface. If I run this, oops, if I run this, it doesn't give me anything. Shows, oh, interesting. That didn't work the first time. What did I change? Okay, so it's not, that's not gonna work. It's sometimes it worked once for some reason. I don't know that there's a way for us to constrain this at all. Open a new window, set to true. What happens here when I try that? Is open a new tab? Nope. So I wonder if this is some kind of more of a bug. If I right click and run this, it runs. Nope. It worked. So it works very intermittently. That worked. That worked. That works. And then it doesn't work. So if I run it manually, oh well, that worked. And now if I put you in again, nothing. Yeah, I don't know that there's, what I'm trying to do is just see if I could trick it with an inform session, because we can let that redirect us. I don't think navigate, folder ID, page name. I mean, I guess you could put the form on a page, right?
It's not just one form, it's a process containing several forms.
Like all like
large
signed?
Process. No, it's just somebody goes in, they fill out several forms that are in sequence together to give us all the information that we need, process a payment, and then go through. So there's like probably 5 or 6 forms that they're going to go through.
That's okay. What if we use, let's look at a page concept here. I'll create a page. And on this page, I'm just gonna only put, I'm gonna come under here to, where's it at? Data flows? No. Designer entities, flows. And I'm gonna put a run flow part here. And I'm gonna pick one of the flows. I'll pick flow 2, the one that has a form in it. That's a page. What I could do is add a normal folder here. And then I could put that page that I just built as a page. Man, stink. Maybe it's that one. I don't remember. We'll see. Yeah, so here's my flow run part now, which means I could give integration details for my page, which I can create a folder alias for. Where are you at? Manage. But this would, I think this is probably where we're headed. Like in flow 2. Yes, I'll break the lock. We would put, you could have multiple forms on a page. And then the users aren't going to interact with the flow tracking ID at all anymore. I'll show you what this might look like. This is more of like a kiosk type thing. Oops. So you could have effectively this: manage integration, view integration details, log in. I could do the same kind of things where I could say Chrome is off and get my URL here. And then I could open up this. Now that stays there. You would still have a named session on that, but then a user sees this, and you could hide the flow run part, and you could make this full page, and they can click through the pieces. And that way they don't ever get the flow tracking ID parts. Now you can't have them go to an assigned form this way, but if it's just for a submission, you might get some easy wins here. And there are ways to do folder alias. I think you should be able to, maybe we can make this even shorter. Yeah, I can't really find that yet. Does this make sense what I'm offering here at all?
It does, but the URL is still very lengthy. My purpose is to get the URL to be as short and simple as possible. Because I mean, there's other processes we're going to have to where I know the office that is going to utilize these have people call in, and they need to redirect them over the phone to a URL to access a form.
So you want it to be like, yeah, like, bank.com/ invoice submitter or something.
Yeah.
I bet we can't do it in the app this gracefully, but we should be able to do it just in the web server, like an actual redirect. Like any request that goes, like a normal redirect, like any request that goes to, bank.com/ submission just ends up going to a decisions flow. Now that's not something the app does itself, but since it's just a web server that we can do, we should be able to put like, 403s or whatever, 304s, whatever redirects are in the web server.
Where is that web server located on the server running decisions?
It's like co-located. Like you don't have direct access to it in a SaaS world, but we could set that up for you.
Okay.
Like
I mean, we have a self-hosted environment.
Okay. Well, then you would you need your ops team to put together a redirect.
I'm on the ops team.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's just a normal redirect then. So like in IIS, are you on V7 or
we're
V6?
not using IIS. When the server was installed, IIS was not part of that. I was not a part of the install, but when my IT director worked with support to install our servers, IIS was not installed.
Okay. Let's see, Kestrel redirect. Kestrel rewriting a URL in ASP.NET Core. I probably have to figure out how to do this for you, Jeremy. I know we can use redirects, right? It's a web server, and we could say any call to this URL goes to this URL.
Yeah.
So you could create totally custom URLs that call more verbose decisions URLs.
Yeah, that was one path we were discussing. We just didn't know how to do that because we don't know what the web server that decisions is running on, because don't have IIS installed on the server, so we don't know where that is on the server to do that.
It's in the file system. I mean, it's I don't know exactly where to put the redirect files at. It's running Kestrel. We're using like an embedded web server using Kestrel, some .NET Core library that we use. Okay. What I need to do, I'd have to ask someone from support to follow up with you here, if that's okay.
Okay.
We can figure out how to do this. I just don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, okay. It is true. We don't give you total control over the format of the URLs here. But because we're just a web server, I'm sure we can find a way using a standard redirect to get you what you're after. And we can give you some directions about how to do that.
Yeah, I'll ask. Sounds good.
Hey, AB, you're on. Would you mind submitting a ticket to support on Jeremy's behalf for me, sir? Since you're listening.
Yep, sure thing.
About how to do forced redirects in V7 embedded, please?
Yep, so force redirecting the URL in Visual 7. Got it.
Yeah, correct. And just make sure that the team tags it as Jeremy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, good question. That was a tough one. So yeah, I think we'll let support follow up on that. Yeah. And then if you don't get the answer you're looking for, let's chat about it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Excuse me. Go ahead, Corbin. What do you got, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I was wondering if there's a good way to set a single property on an object, or do we have to use the create data every time and setting up the data to create? It seems kind of redundant to do that. That's what I'm doing right now, and it's working. But is there a better way just to set a single property on an existing object?
There is a mapping step. I don't really prefer this step, but a lot of the service team uses this. And you are still using steps, but if you look at the mapping step here, let me put a create data step here to give us some data to use here. And I'll do 2 pieces of data, a string, maybe an account. And so in the mapping step, the property grid on it has, let me see here. Let me check for this. Somewhere here. Yeah, the mapping step, its properties pick up the upstream data automatically. And so, I could set string 1 equal to hello here. The mapping step lets me then set it to something else if I wanted to, set it to world. And then let me just copy this and put it here. And as it flows through, it should update the value of that. Let me just make sure I'm correct here. So if I look at output data, there's string 1 hello. If I look at input output world, that's fine. String 1 world is changed, and this should be hello. Hold on.
Can you also set the account to something so we can see that only the other account remains the same, but then the string just gets updated?
So in that you would do, I think you would do build data. And
no, I mean, prior to this, so that your mapping step only touches string 1 and whatever account was prior to coming in remains set.
Yeah, with account 1 being set the way it is, it's ignored. Like it's not updated here.
If you can I just see that there? So if you in create data, if you specify an account there,
I specified the admin account.
Oh, okay. So then can we look at the debug there and see that remains the same?
So here's account 1, which is the admin account, the administrator account. Here's this account ID.
Okay.
You want to see it here? Oh, I have to pass it in. There you go. And then account 1 would be select from flow account 1. Oh, this is why. This needs to be select from flow string 1. Sorry, that's why it wasn't shown before. Let me debug this. So here we go. View input output. We have string 1 hello and account 1, which is I just showed it. Here's the administrator account. And then on our mapping step, we are ignoring account 1 and setting string 1 to the value world. And if we look here, just looking at input data, we see string 1 is now world and account 1 remains the admin account here.
Okay.
Am I answering your question?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So rather than using these create datas all over, I think just mapping steps would be more appropriate when I'm trying to set single properties on.
It can be easier. It's easier up front. I personally prefer from the create data work. It is more work up front because you do, it can be a lot, but as a flow gets
using the build data and the create data, and I have to remap every single property, and that's what I'm struggling with. I only want to set one property, but I have to remap every single property.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something you don't have to do. You want to use change value. Let me show you how to use this. This is not something that's intuitive in our tool at all. but hopefully you will find this enlightening. And admittedly, it should be easier to do, but I'm going to fetch accounts. Right, I'm going to fetch a list. I'm going to fetch all my accounts from my database, right? And I'm going to loop that account list, which comes out as entity results in my for each. And I'm going to add a 1 to everyone's email address. So I'm going to update just a single property on the on my account. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to declare a string. I'll call this update. I'll just name this thing updated email type string. And what I'll do is my input will be select from flow. Now item is my single account passing through my for each, right? And I'll find item.email address as the string that I want to muck around with. Oops, sorry, I'm doing this wrong. I need to do merge plain text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the example I laid out. I'm going to find item.email address. And then I'm just going to put plus. In fact, I'll do plus index number just to make it more dynamic. I'll use the index of the for each step. But this just is a temporary change. It doesn't actually do anything. So what I'm going to do is come to the outputs, updated email, and I'll rename to change value. And change value will give me a picker. And what I can pick is item.email address. So what this is saying is replace item.email address with whatever value I have here. And then if I run this, I guess I probably need to, let me do a create data step with like a string list here, just so I can pass the emails in. This will be updated emails. This will be a string list. And then updated emails will be select from flow. And I don't do entity results, all emails, right? This will show you that the change has been propagated to the collection that I'm looping through here. I'll run this. And if I look at my input data, I should have all the accounts that I have in my system with that merge text of the index that's been given to them.
Okay, so that create data there, I keep like redefining the data in the data to create in the create step and then overwriting it's in the output. So I don't actually need to be doing that, it looks like.
Correct. Yeah, that's very burdensome to do it that way. And it can be that makes yes, that is a colossal pain in the butt from doing mapping.
Gotcha. Okay, this helps. Thank
you. Declare the property that you want to update. Its type, give it some throwaway name, pass in the new input, and then come to change value and find the object.item, object.property name, right? And say change value to this. So whatever comes in here, update item.email address to that value. And you don't, of course, you don't have to use it for each step. That just makes it easy to loop through a couple.
Thanks.
Yeah, do we not have, hey, AB, do we have anything do we have this really change data? We should really.
I've had a real hard time using your search box on your website here. I've started using just a Google search against your site with my queries instead.
Oh, really? That's working better?
Yeah, because it actually finds stuff on pages as well.
How are you scoping the Google search just to our
site : domain name space query?
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can use that for any site.
Site : domain name
space the query. I think you might need that might work. Go ahead and try it.
Just type in the.
Yep, just like that. You might need the full domain. No, that's working.
Oh, wow, good to know. Look at that. I thought I had my Google foo was strong. Hey, look at that. Thanks, Corbin. That was helpful. Yeah, I guess we'll have to look at why the Doc 360 search is sucking for you right now. I don't know off the top of my head why.
Yeah, I just started doing that yesterday. Actually, I realized, hey, I can probably just use Google to search this better than the built-in search is working for me, because that continues to be a struggle to find stuff through your documentation search.
Excuse me. Okay. Hopefully that piece helps. Anything else you got?
I just have another one. Can truth table matches be case insensitive?
Is match.
Yeah. And
Is match a verb?
for the is match, is there a way I can make that case insensitive?
Here's a truth table. So let me see. So str1 is match. Where is match at?
Is right there.
Ah, I see. I don't. Yeah. We could probably do it with a custom one. I don't know that we want to do that. Equals, because we can't actually set text insensitive anywhere, can we? Oh, equals will. Okay, equals lets you see case insensitive at the top.
Okay, so instead of is using equal, and that has a case insensitive option.
Yeah, I would switch to equal there because equals gives you a case insensitivity, and you can see it at the top here. Oops.
Yep,
Oh Lord. Yeah, case insensitive. Do we show that to you? No, that's interesting. We don't show that at all. I'm gonna make a note of that. And that's on the actual cell level, huh? Interesting. We need to call that out in the designer better. Yeah, I'd never use is. I mean, I would use equals, and equals gives it to you.
Okay, cool.
So this one would be what? Edit. I'll say hello. Anybody got anything else for us today? Okay, now hello is case insensitive true. Yeah, there's no visual indication of this at all.
All right, if nobody else has anything, I just have another one.
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am.
Can you convert a string list to an int list, or do I have to loop and convert each element?
Oh, string list to an int list?
Yes. Is there any built-in to do that? I didn't see it, and I'm using a loop and converting each one individually right now.
I think list mapping step will let you do that a little bit easier. Usually it's meant for objects, but I don't think it has to be list mapping. So output type, I'll look for int 32, and the input would be a list of strings. Let's see here, this step is faster than looping too. It gives you the special item mapping editor here. Inputs, I'll just do constant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any day. And then item mapping editor. And then you'll see this thing input, and you would pass here. It doesn't make much sense because this would usually be an object. You'd expand your object and you expand your mapping object and you map all the fields, right? You run this and it doesn't like that, huh? Error changing type from string to int 32. Okay, well then we can just go put a converter there. So item mapping editor, select from flow, run converter, convert string to int 32, string to convert. And then boom, you should have a string list come in and a int list come out. You can see that just in the way that they're formatted here on the in the JSON.
Okay, so list mapping step, and then we had to add a converter in that mapping. Okay.
Yeah, that'll save you 1 or 2 steps in a flow.
Thanks.
You bet.
I have another one too.
Yeah, please go ahead, man.
I
Happy to
was
help.
I implemented some flow recursion yesterday, and I noticed in the docs, actually using that Google search, I found in the V5 docs through Google that there's a stop recursion setting, but then I noticed that your current flow settings page is broken. It's a broken link right now on your documentation site. And so I was wondering if that setting was removed because I don't see it anymore in the designer.
AB, you got this?
Yep, that's the same page that's not working, and that looks like in the V5 docs, I had a flow policy settings page under the V5 URL, and that's where it says the stop recursion, to use the stop recursion setting to set the depth. But it looks like that setting is no longer available.
Stop recursion?
Yes, stop recursion at, looks like was the name of that.
That's definitely still around. You stop recursion at, you don't see this in your flow settings?
Oh, is it the flow itself? I was looking at the properties of the run flow step.
No, it's actually, this is controlled at the flow setting level.
Oh, okay.
On a flow, I'd tell you the maximum amount of step executions that this flow can allow.
I don't think I've used the flow settings at all. How do I get there?
Just click into the empty space of the canvas, or you can click up to the properties little like vertical label in the top right hand corner. Either one should get you into the, and it'll show up like this on my screen now. And then you just expand settings and you'll see those properties there.
Okay, and that's replaced once you click a step, the step properties replaced.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's the step properties are always specified unless you click into empty space. I guess it goes away. I don't think that's great. But if you need to get to, you can be in the canvas, and then if you need to, just click properties in the right hand corner and get to the
Cool. That's what I was looking
get
for.
to the flow level settings.
If you could take that broken page back to your team.
Yeah, AB, you got that?
Yeah, can I see the slug for the page?
I
See what's
put
going
it.
on for it.
Oh, sorry, I did not. Yeah, here's the URL for it. I'll put it in the chat for everybody.
Thank you.
It's flow dash settings, docs flow dash settings.
Gotcha.
And this was the one, the V5 one I found through Google that referenced that step.
Thank you. Docs flow policy settings. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna roll. I got another one. With a repository server,
Mm-hmm.
is there a way to preserve permissions after a branch switching? I'm finding that every single time I switch a branch and promote to our QA server, I have to remove and then reset the permissions. It stops working, and I have to go in there, actually remove the user on the integration flow, save it, then go back in, add them, and save it again before it starts working again. I don't know if that's potentially a bug with the branch switching, or if there's something I could do to get around that.
What type of permissions are you using? This is like an account or group permission added to a folder?
It is, let me double check that. It's the permission on a folder for can use, I think it was.
Okay.
Here it is right here. Manage permission.
Yeah, manage permissions. So you're adding is it for an account or a group?
It's an account with the can use permission. And after I do, if I switch the branch, I have Postman up for testing. I try and run it, and it won't allow me to run it anymore. And then I have to remove that account, save it, close out, then come back into the manage permissions again, add it, and save it again. I found that if I just remove it and re-add it in the same window, that also doesn't work. I have to save it, close out, go back and manage folder permissions again, add it again, and add the permission.
So that's interesting. It might be a function of it being an account permission. Now, because you can't, we try to exclude those from being attached to projects so they don't get promoted between environments. And changing a branch is effectively doing like an import, right? Like you're importing the branch change as like a new project in a sense.
Right.
So
it only exists on this server because it's a QA account with a named session associated.
Well, you can keep the account, but I would try using a group permission here. I mean, that doesn't sound right. Like it shouldn't happen. But I guess I can see what I'm saying is I think I could see the sequence of events that could have let that happen, which is kind of like on the line between, it's definitely unideal behavior, but maybe not a bug. Like it definitely wouldn't be a bug if it alerts you saying we've removed account permission XYZ as part of this branch change, right? I'm fairly certain that if you use a group permission, and then you could just make that group, that user you're using a part of that group, and make sure the group permission is part of your project, that you would not encounter this. But that does sound like something we need the support team to follow up on it and look into a little bit more for you, Corbin. I don't know off the top of my head, but I bet right now, if you used a group permission, that you could get around that. I'm thinking it has.
A group permission can be checked into a project, you said?
You can, yeah.
Okay, I'll try adding that and see if that makes a difference. And it's not, I'll open a support ticket.
Yeah, because group permissions, you can even, groups themselves can be exported between environments, which accounts cannot. So you can keep your groups consistent between in different environments and just make sure the memberships themselves are different.
Okay.
And that means that you can also attach a group permissions. Now, oftentimes when you add them, they don't always get picked up by the project association. So you might want to, might have to go find it. Do you know how to view hidden items? You might have to go find it in a hidden item. Like here, just make sure everyone, I want to add a group permission here for all users to have can use. And if I wanted to see that thing, I'm in the URL format folder, I could come to folder view, click the gear icon, click change, show with hidden here from change my default report, collapse my things, and then here's a group permission all users. And if I right click that, you just double check to make sure it gets added to the project when you add it, just to be certain.
All right, we'll do.
Cool. Anything else, man?
I guess there was one more on the when I was playing around with recursion yesterday. I found that unit tests I was setting. I tried creating just a Fibonacci recursive function for a test, and I found that I couldn't set unit tests that would pass. Looking at the output on the final on the top level step was the correct answer, but writing a unit test against that was failing. I don't know if it was because the subflows in the recursion were checking the wrong values against it, and it wasn't going all the way to completion. But it looks like unit tests don't work properly with recursion right now.
Are you actually calling a flow inside of itself?
Yes.
Okay. Does it have some kind of breakout logic?
Yeah, it's the I'll just show you so like this is the implementation in Python of the recursive Fibonacci. So that's what I implemented in decisions, and I found it worked properly.
If n is less than or equal to 1, return n, else return recurve fib n -1 plus n -2.
Yep. So it works properly and gives the right results, but I couldn't get it to. It was like saying, let me run that one. Like the 10th execution would be 55, but it was saying failed from 10. But if just looking at the debug, it was giving me that 55 on output.
Okay, interesting. I don't know off the top of my head. We could.
Yeah, it's 10 is not 55 and it fails, but if I look on that same debug and do the output data, I do get 55 on that final output. So it looks like maybe when setting up the unit tests against a recursive flow like this, it looks like maybe it's causing it to fail because of the inner runs.
Yeah, that's let's see. I don't ever use recursive flow designs. How do you have, what do you do? Are you just doing a check? Like,
I did. Can I share a screenshot of this flow in the chat or not even?
Yeah, I can make you here. I'll just promote you to a panelist, and then you can share your screen if you'd like. Oh, did it boot him? Oh, no, you're here. It made you go on mute for some reason.
Still here. All right, here's what I'm seeing.
Subtract flow fib, add results, set in.
Yep.
Less
so
than or
it's,
equal to 1. Okay.
so it's running at the -1, get the -1 result. It's running at -2, get the -2 result. Add them together, set n, and then output. So
Okay.
if I go debug and I try just the 1 test, if it's 1, the 10 test should be if n is 55.
Okay.
So if I run this, I see that this one works fine. So without recursive, it goes on the top path, and that's fine. But if I go on for the 10 path example and look at the output here, I got my 55. Great. It should have passed, but it says 10 is 55, failed.
Is 10 the first number passed into the first subflow, or the output of the first subflow or something?
Yeah, 10 is what's passed in for this execution. So that's the input on this unit test, and it's 10.
Yeah.
So it must be executing that test on like the very first time it gets to that.
Probably getting confused. It's like it probably kicks off a flow. It probably saves a flow ID, and then like checks the result of that flow ID for the current session or something like that. Yeah, this has just got to be a straight up bug that we don't really have much recursive stuff.
So you support recursion, but your unit tests don't currently support recursion, is what I'm finding.
Yeah, that sounds like a fair statement.
Okay.
Is it possible for you to just create a project for that and shoot it to support and ask them to follow up? If not, or you can shoot it to me and I'll follow up and ask support to do that.
Sure. I'll do that right now.
That would be wonderful. I mean, I'm sure the guys that own the unit test code will want to take a look at that. Okay, great. Let me, I guess you can change it back to an attendee. All right, and then anybody else got anything today? Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for the questions. That was a couple interesting ones today. So, Marie, who do we have for tomorrow and Thursday?
Tomorrow we have Matt Barney, and on Thursday we have Brandon Roberts.
Okay, wonderful. So we've got some solutions team and some support team for the rest of the week. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon and see you next week.